We all know learning a language like Arabic opens doors, exposes us to new cultures, and provides us with opportunity to meet new people. When we talk to people about their Arabic language journeys, we usually hear about all the people they meet in the Arab world, developing, in some cases, lifelong friendships or working relationships. Well, in this episode of All Things Arabic with me, Sage Smiley, we're staying a bit closer to home, and I'm meeting some fellow former students of Arabic in Utah. Although we're all connected in some ways, we all studied Arabic and we've been using our Arabic since we left university, we've never met before. That is, until now. Okay, hi. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm Sage. I am the news director of a radio station in Alaska, and I studied Arabic since I was a kid. I've studied Arabic for more than half of my life now. In Arabic, اسمي مريمية المبتسمة وأنا مديرة الأخبار والمراسلة الإذاعية في ألاسكا. How about you?
I'm Neil Spagman. السلام عليكم لجميع المستمعين. أنا مدير شركة اسمه Regenerative Resources وشغالين في مشاريع في 4 دول في الشرق الأوسط.
شرفنا.
مرحبا، أنا اسمي إيميلي باكسمان بالعربي، وأسكن هون بمدينة ولاية يوتا بمدينة لندن. كنت طالبة في جامعة برغم في الماضي، والآن I don't know, I'm not very interesting الآن للأسف يعني. ممكن في المستقبل إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله.
أهلا وسهلا، اسمي أرتورو وأنا كنت طالب هون في جامعة برغم أنا درست العربي من 10 سنوات، لا 14 سنوات، وكمان أنا درست بالأردن، وهلا أنا بشتغل مع منظمة غير حكومية وهيك.
شكرا جزيلا. So I guess to start out, we can all at least introduce ourselves in Arabic. How did you get started in Arabic? For me, I started in high school. It was a very random decision. I started with French, actually, and then my high school got an Arabic program right before my freshman year, gave us a little slip of paper and said, check this box if you want to take Arabic. And I thought Arabic is cooler than French, so I started studying Arabic. But I want to know how each of you started studying Arabic and how that progressed into your college years, if you can tell me that. How about we start with you, Emily?
Well, my mom actually studied Arabic here at BYU for 2 years, and by the time I came along, she remembered none of it, but it didn't seem that weird to me that somebody would study Arabic as a language. And well, I had no idea that that was a major that was here. I kept sort of accidentally having the Middle East and Arab culture and Arabic language just sort of find its way into my life until about a semester away from graduation, I discovered, oh, I can major in this thing. So I changed my major, added 3 years, and have never regretted it.
Beautiful. How about you, Arturo?
My story's a little bizarre. Honestly, it was just a bunch of coincidences and intuition and gut feelings that, and I resisted it for a couple of years, and then finally I took Arabic 101, declared the major, and some sort of peace washed over me. I never regretted it, and had a blast. I loved my undergrad.
For me, it was 9/11. I was in Guatemala when 9/11 happened, and I was having conversations with a Tunisian smuggler who was the first Muslim I really ever got to know. And it was the juxtaposition of 9/11 with this really positive interaction I had. It was the juxtaposition of the two things happening in very close sequence. And so it made me curious. I came home from Guatemala and I took an Arabic course and really liked it and ended up taking more.
How did that develop then for you? Because I'm sure, I started Arabic at a very young age and did not end up in the same place with Arabic that I thought I would. So how did that continue on? I guess I can start by sharing my story, or a brief version of my story, which is that I started Arabic at 13 years old, studied through high school, studied through college. Arabic actually influenced what I ended up majoring in university, which was journalism. I double majored in journalism and Arabic. And I went into my college study of Arabic with this idea that I would be an international correspondent and that I was going to go to the Middle East and I was going to do these big things. And that just, as I grew and I developed, and I still maintained this love for Arabic, but I didn't end up going the same direction with Arabic that I thought that I would. And I ended up going into radio journalism, and I don't use Arabic in a daily capacity. So I guess maybe my question, first of all, is do you use Arabic in a daily capacity? And if you don't, are there aspects of your Arabic education that you take with you in a daily capacity?
I do not use it on a daily basis. I do use it maybe quarterly, but I do. It has served me quite well in my career and does currently. We have a pretty massive Muslim community within the company, and I'm kind of the go-to guy to make sure things are appropriate, that we're not saying things that might cause division and whatnot.
I never use Arabic except for I have a coworker who also studied Arabic a couple years ahead of me here at BYU. So I've maintained sort of a Rolodex of insults for him. And so that's really what my use of Arabic looks like. So my field has nothing to do with Arabic. I have no occasion to use it. But I use a lot of the skills that I learned from learning Arabic in my job fairly regularly, almost daily, in fact. And actually it was the study of Arabic and my time doing an internship abroad that actually taught me, oh, this is the thing that I really enjoy doing that I didn't expect. I'm going to go find a career that will help me center on this thing, whether or not it includes Arabic.
Tell us more about that, like specific.
So I was doing a research program, or a research project. I am apparently a person who is mostly fueled by spite. And I got really frustrated hearing, as we were preparing to go on study abroad, about, well, you need to do X, Y, and Z as a woman or else you're going to get harassed. And again, more out of rage and spite, said, well, then I want to look at this and see if this is real or not. And we couldn't find any evidence that some of the different factors that we looked at were correlated at all. And I had never really done anything with statistics. That was like everything I learned on YouTube was the foundation for that paper. But I really enjoyed that experience of the data collection, finding a useful insight that actually, I think, changed my behavior and what I did and how I lived in that and showed up in that society, and really wanted to continue doing that kind of work in whatever form it took.
And that influences your career now?
Yes. So the group that I manage is the SVP and managing director of the consulting group. There's a lot of different types of analysis that group ends up doing. And there are a lot of really difficult questions we get asked that have a lot of weight and importance. And it's really fun to get to do something that matters and find different methods to try to get to what the truth of the matter is and share that with the world in a way that we hope is impactful and makes the world better.
How about you, Neil? How have you either used Arabic in a daily capacity, or how does that experience of studying Arabic impact what you do day to day?
Yeah. So I was recruited into a project in Mecca in 2010. And I became co-founder of something called the El Bela Project, where I was functionally embedded with tribes of settled nomads for about 8 years. And I was the only English speaker within like 100 miles. And so that was all Arabic all the time, except for when I went home on the weekends to Jeddah. And so that was, instrumental. Just familiarity with the culture and language is the entire reason I got that job. And since then, I was director of that project until 2018. Since then, I've spent at least 3 or 4 months of every year back in the region on different kinds of consultancies, different kinds of projects where even if a lot of the work being done is in English, just the ability to make people feel comfortable and familiar with me through key phrases, through shared experiences is extremely helpful. And so we continue to have work in the region. And the Arabic language part isn't nearly as big a part of it now as it was when I was with the Bedu. But that was quite a formative experience for me.
How about you, Arturo?
I remember, and hopefully it's okay that I say this, but my professor before going to Jordan said to a group of 40 of us, he said, you know what, play anthropologist. Just don't get riled up. Don't feel like everybody has to have the same views as you, whether it's religiously or politically, and just kind of be playful with it. And I took that to heart, and I've implemented that everywhere. And I feel like to this day, my favorite region in the world is the Middle East. But that created a foundation of how I've I think been able to succeed, and I've done work in almost 30 countries, and it's become quite easy to just flow and connect, and ultimately have success in the work that I've had to do because of that.
I think I really relate to that. Not that I've been working in different countries, but the last few communities that I've worked in have been either a significant portion or predominantly Alaska Native. I work at a rural Alaska radio station, and the current radio station that I work at actually broadcasts bilingually in Yuksun and in English. And something that I found so interesting that I never would have really thought would come from my study of Arabic, not only is that kind of ability to sit back and appreciate and enjoy and learn and try and understand cultures that are not immediately familiar, but then also I've found that the study of Arabic linguistically has really helped me. The sounds that exist in Arabic do not exist in English and a lot of other Romance languages, but it turns out a lot of them do exist in Yurtun or in Tlingit, which was the indigenous language of the last place that I lived. And I've found myself much more easily able to pronounce names than a lot of other people. Or, for example, the name of the cultural center in the town that I live in is the Yupit Bachirait Cultural Center, which is not a name that people find especially easy to say, but that like la sound and coughs and glottal stops have really moved me along in my study of languages that have nothing to do with Arabic. And that's a thing I never would have thought when I went from studying Arabic to do journalism to just doing journalism, that Arabic would still continue through.
Yeah. And you know what? Now that I think about it, I got recruited onto my current position to oversee programming in North Africa and India and the Middle East. And prior to me being there, they had never done anything in that region. And I think people are intimidated. But I think because of having lived there, we started this program supporting girls' education in Afghanistan, which we evacuated all those girls with our partnership when the Taliban hit, which I remember going in and pitching to the president and CEO of the company and explaining to them, Islam and the Taliban and the history of that location and the barriers that little girls faced to education. And they said yes. And so we were able to fund that project for a while. And we still do. It's just now in Rwanda. But we also started a program in the West Bank supporting Palestinian artisans, and a program in Iraq supporting displaced Yazidi communities. And not that I was fluent in Arabic, but I think just having a grasp for the region and the geopolitical nuances made it so that I was able to live my dream of merging my background in international development to this specific location.
I really relate to what you're talking about there with some of the translation between groups, in your professional life, people who don't understand, and having lived there and being able to be that translator, not in the literal sense of the language, although sometimes yes, but those cultural nuances. About 2 months ago, I was at a conference the company was putting on in Dubai, and there were a lot of little questions and confusions that people have, and it was really fun to be able to take what would have potentially been an awkward encounter or an instance where somebody would have potentially felt offended and be able to explain, oh no, this is what actually happened, and to have all those groups there on the ground with us and our company be able to work really effectively together. And it was one of the most fun conferences I've ever been a part of, just because the Middle Eastern hospitality was present, and our team was understanding them and how to approach that. And it was really cool to get to see, a couple of these little things that I get to add make a big difference to the relationship that everybody else is forming.
In my experience, every time you go somewhere new, there's the first stage of culture shock where everything is novelty and it's charming at first. And then about 100 days in, you get the second stage of culture shock where you miss familiarity, and all that stuff that seemed cute and novel and charming just becomes super annoying, and you want what's normal to you. And everybody hits that. Everyone hits that second stage of culture shock. And it's always between 3 and 4 months in. I've always thought study abroads needed to be at least 6 months to give people the time to get over that.
There's been multiple mentions now of
Yeah.
some frustration with studying Arabic at some point. What made you stick with it? Like, why did you keep going when things were weird or confusing or stressful or linguistically really hard? What kept you going through Arabic and kept you going long enough that now, even if you don't use Arabic in a day-to-day capacity, that you feel these long-lasting effects of Arabic study that are, well, from what I hear, vastly positive?
To me, through no effort of my own, I just found a charm in it. I found a charm in the bluntness, in the I'm more timid, in the fact that they couldn't grasp their mind around why someone would be shy or why someone would have depression or why somebody would want to eat alone or walk across campus alone, wearing flip-flops of everything. And it was kind of interesting and fascinating. And the fact that I would get invited everywhere to family gatherings and weddings, and to the point where 3 weeks before I came home, I turned my phone off because I needed to try and pass my exams. But then I thought of my Palestinian friends here, and I'm like, man, I wonder if anyone actually approaches them and invites them over to meet their family and go to the wedding. And so I stuck with it because I did find that amazing generosity and charm, and letting go of trying to ensure that my friendships view the world the same as me.
I feel like it was two things for me. The first is very similar to what you said. There were elements culturally that were unfamiliar and were frustrating. There were pieces of it that felt like, oh, this is the way it works for me too. And so I felt like I was able to make friendships in a way that I hadn't been able to here in quite the same way. And it's interesting, every time I've gone back, I sort of feel at ease, because there are certain parts of who I am as a person that sort of feel like, oh, this is normal for them too. This is the way they operate. And I feel like there's a part of me that gets to be seen in a way that it isn't here. The other thing that I think was a big part of that was likely the same professor, based on your description of his shooting straight there, said something similar to us. And that anthropological approach, I feel like, prompted me to ask more questions of why would it be this way? And it wasn't just that, oh, I've gained an understanding, but now I'm getting to ask questions of myself and the way I view the world. And that was, I feel like I was growing as a person, and that sort of encouraged me to go, okay, this is hard, but I want to keep going here because I have these relationships that matter, and it's my relationship to self and identity that's also being benefited in the process. And so both of those things, I mean, how could you not at that point? It always felt like that was never an option to not study Arabic. And it was just so fun to get to do both of those pieces.
I resonate a lot with that. I think for me, I felt and continue to feel that any chance to expand my world, to have just an entirely new facet through which to view the world, to have words that are untranslatable, that convey feelings that don't quite work in another language, makes your mind and the depth of your life experience so much deeper. And I love that. I think it's so fascinating and beautiful. And in other languages too, to complicate your relationship to the world and to just get deeper brings me so much joy.
I think for me, the answer is mostly utilitarian. I had opportunities that Arabic brought out. And then when I moved to Saudi, I was in love with the purpose of what we were doing. I was in love with the work we were doing. And so it made the difficulty of it worth it, at least initially. And then after that, it was deep friendships that I was able to establish, and people who we may not talk very often, and we haven't seen each other for years, but we'll be friends for life. And there's something very rich about that.
I remember this experience with one of my friends that I made there. His name was Anwar. To this day, he'll still comment hearts and flowers every time I post on social media. But I remember one of the things that we would talk about as Western students there is the frustrations of especially the whole female thing. I remember being at his house with his 3 sisters, and they were just being clowns and laughing, and then they went quiet. One of them turns to me and said in the most innocent, gentle smile, "Why do you guys think women here are so oppressed?" And it was like a combination of melting and this thing of like, man, who am I to just come in saying that this is what oppression looks like and project that on people. And so I just slowly started letting go of things that maybe were triggering for me because of my background or my human rights mindset or whatever. And once I let that go, you just learn to embrace. And that's helped me in my job because I've been in all these different communities where I think I have the best idea that's going to just really solve this issue. And they'll come back and say, you know what, that's great that you want to clean our water, but we'd rather have a soccer field. And at that moment, you just have to go with the soccer field. You just have to respect that people know what's best and not try and change mindsets because that's not our business.
It's a big life lesson.
Yeah.
I think it's also interesting to think about how that impacts how I think about my personal actions or my country's actions as well, not just what do I think about the oppression of women and letting go of some of my ideas, but also thinking about, I am now seeing the impact of my government's policy on people. I don't just know them in an abstract sense. These are, I mean, to your point earlier, these are deep personal friendships who, it doesn't matter how many years go by, these are people I truly love and cherish who have been wronged by things that I grew up my whole life thinking this was a great policy. And coming home, I feel like I'm more thoughtful and critical anytime there's something that could impact the Middle East on the table, thinking about what are the perspectives on the ground going to be and how will this impact them, and being able to deconstruct that and hopefully, advocate for policies that are better for everyone has also been, I think, a really important thing to know and recognize and take responsibility for here in my own life in America, of communicating that to the people in my life, because I know people who are being impacted by these things and in very horrific ways sometimes. So I'm kind of taking that a little bit further. That's one of the things that I feel like I've learned as well.
Thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts with me today. It's wild to me how much our experiences can diverge with where we went after studying Arabic, and yet we have all these connections. And I'll say sharafna, thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Alf shukr wa shukr.
My thanks again to Neil, Emily, and Arturo. It was lovely to meet them and share our stories, inspirations, and experiences. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of All Things Arabic. If you have, please like and share it. This podcast was made possible by QFI, a US-based organization that helps make the teaching and learning of Arabic as accessible and professional as other world languages. Please do visit the QFI website to learn more about opportunities and resources available to language educators and students. For now, shukran jazilan, thank you very much. Ma'a salama, or as we say up here in Yupik country in Alaska, Pira.